Imagine this scene. An Athenian official named Lycidas rises in a crowded assembly hall on Salamis Island. He lifts his hand, proposing what seems reasonable. Perhaps we should hear Persia's peace terms. No debate follows, no voting. Instead, his fellow counselors surround him and stone him to death on the assembly floor. But the horror doesn't end there. Athenian women, learning what transpired, storm to his residence. They drag his wife and children into the streets and execute them with stones. This wasn't fiction. This was Athens in 479 BC. The Greeks had abandoned negotiation. Traumatized, displaced, and consumed by rage, they spoke only the language of blood. The 300 of Thermopylae were corpses. Athens lay in ruins. Only violence remained. This merciless mindset became the foundation for history's decisive confrontation, the Battle of Plataea. This is how Greece transformed from victims into executioners. Before we explore these brutal truths of ancient warfare, if you value learning about history's hidden depths, consider liking this video and subscribing. Please comment your location. I'm amazed we're examining these ancient events together. Lycidas' execution proved Greek desperation. King Xerxes had departed, but danger remained. He left General Mardonius, far more lethal than any king. Mardonius wasn't touring. He was a predator. He commanded 300,000 elite Persian troops in Boeotia's plains, holding a blade to Greece's throat. He burned Athens twice to send a message: I remain. The refugee Athenians reached their limit. They dispatched messengers to Sparta with words that weren't requests, but ultimatums. They told Sparta's ruling ephors, march now, or Athens' navy joins Persia. When that happens, your walls become irrelevant. It jolted Sparta awake. The Spartans had delayed, sheltering behind the Corinthian isthmus, hoping problems would vanish, facing a potential Athenian-Persian alliance. Sparta's war apparatus finally activated. When Sparta mobilizes, the earth trembles. In one night, the ephors issued mobilization orders that defy comprehension. They didn't dispatch advance units. They evacuated the city. 5,000 Spartiates, the absolute elite, armed themselves. But here's the staggering logistical detail revealing their commitment. They brought their slaves. For each Spartan warrior, 7 helot slaves received arms and march orders. That's 35,000 conscripted servants accompanying their masters to battle. Combined with 5,000 allied troops, a column of 45,000 men disappeared from the Peloponnese before dawn. When Athenian envoys woke the next morning prepared to confront Spartan leaders, the ephors simply gestured toward the rising sun. Stop shouting. Our army already reached the border. The hunt begins. While Spartans marched north, raising dust and terror equally, General Mardonius was maneuvering. We must correct a massive historical misconception about the Persian Wars. Popular culture depicts Persians as mindless hordes, unskilled slaves driven by whips. That's propaganda. Mardonius's army in Greece was nothing like Xerxes' bloated parade force. Mardonius had eliminated excess. He sent conscripts home. What remained was a lean, professional fighting force of 300,000 men. These were the immortals, heavy infantry who broke Spartan lines at Thermopylae. These were Saka horse archers from Central Asian steppes, men who could arrow through armor gaps while galloping. Mardonius relied on speed, mobility, and superior tactical flexibility. When scouts reported Spartan departure from the Peloponnese, Mardonius didn't panic. He smiled. He ordered Athens evacuated, but not before delivering a final insult. He commanded the city razed completely. Everything surviving the first invasion, walls, homes, temples, was demolished, smashed, or incinerated. He transformed Athens into a graveyard of broken stone, leaving Greeks nothing but ash to return to. Then Mardonius withdrew north into Boeotia, near Thebes. This wasn't retreat. It was a trap. He selected terrain with chess-master precision, camping along the Asopus River in Plataea's flat, open plains. Greek hoplite tactics had a fatal weakness: slowness. The phalanx was an unstoppable bronze wall, yes, but it turned like a battleship. On flat ground, Mardonius's cavalry could circle them, flank them, and pepper them with arrows until they collapsed. He constructed a massive fortified stockade, a square mile of wooden walls and towers, creating a secure operations base. He effectively built a war city in a field and waited for Greeks to walk into his slaughterhouse. The allied Greek army, swelling with reinforcements from every city-state not collaborating with Persia, arrived at the plain's southern edge. They gazed down from Mount Cithaeron's foothills at the ocean of Persian tents. They saw the immortals' glittering armor and thousands of horses grazing by the river. The Greek commanders, led by Spartan regent Pausanias, made the only intelligent decision. They stopped. They refused to descend onto the plain. They hugged the rocky mountain slopes where Persian cavalry couldn't reach them. It became a high-stakes staring contest. Mardonius in the valley, Pausanias on the ridge. Days passed. Mardonius grew impatient. He decided to test their resolve. He sent his cavalry commander, Masistius. Masistius deserves his own epic. He was the Persian army's most popular man, a giant figure riding a Nisaean stallion with a solid gold bridle. He led cavalry squadrons up the slopes to harass Greek lines. They rode circles, shouting, jeering, raining arrows on exposed Greek infantry. They insulted the Spartans for hiding in hills. It was humiliating. Greeks took casualties, unable to counter these hit-and-run tactics. The Megarians were pinned and near-roting. Pausanias surveyed his commanders. Who would volunteer? It was a suicide mission. But 300 Athenians stepped forward, an echo of the 300 Spartans. They rushed to support the Megarians, bringing their own archers. In the chaotic skirmish, fortune intervened. An arrow struck Masistius's horse in the flank. The beast reared, throwing the Persian commander groundward. The moment he hit dirt, Athenians swarmed him. Here's a detail showing Persian engineering advancement. They couldn't kill him. Masistius wore impenetrable scale armor under his purple tunic. Greeks hacked at him while their swords bounced off. He fought back, a gold-clad tank of a man, until one soldier understood the trick. Thui. He jammed his spear spike through Masistius's helmet eye-hole. The giant fell. Masistius's death sent shockwaves through the Persian army. Cavalry charged recklessly to recover his body, leading to a brutal, dusty brawl over the corpse. But Greeks held their ground. They hoisted the Persian commander's body onto a cart and paraded it through their ranks. It massively boosted morale. They had drawn first blood, but Pausanias knew this was just the prologue. Mardonius watched from the valley floor. He was no longer smiling. Real war was beginning. The euphoria evaporated quickly. It's now August. The Greek sun is a physical weight, hammering down on men encased in 60 pounds of bronze armor. Sweating is constant. Dehydration kills faster than any Persian arrow. Pausanias examined his army and recognized their problem. They held the high ground, safe from cavalry, but far from reliable water. Emboldened by their small victory, Pausanias ordered a maneuver. The entire Greek line, all 100,000 men, shuffled down toward the Asopus River, settling near a vital water source called the Gargaphia Spring. It seemed wise at the time. It wasn't. Mardonius watched them move. He didn't attack. He didn't send infantry charging. Why would he? He saw exactly what Pausanias had done. Greeks had just exposed their neck. Their supply lines stretching back through mountain passes were now exposed. Mardonius snapped his fingers and unleashed his cavalry again, but this time their mission wasn't killing soldiers. It was strangling them. In a logistical warfare masterstroke, Persian horsemen circled around the Greek army and struck the mountain passes behind them. They intercepted a massive convoy of 500 supply wagons bringing food from the Peloponnese. They didn't just capture the wagons. They slaughtered the oxen and drivers, leaving the Greek army completely cut off from provisions. Suddenly, Plataea wasn't about fighting. It was about starving. For 8 long days, both armies sat there. Greeks were terrified to advance because open ground meant death against cavalry. They couldn't retreat without appearing cowardly. So they sat, baking in heat, while Mardonius tightened the noose. Every day, Persian cavalry would ride to the Asopus River, launch arrow volleys into Greek ranks, then ride away laughing. They were taunting the Spartans. But Pausanias held the line. He relied on that famous iron discipline. He forbade his men from breaking formation. But discipline doesn't quench thirst. Then came the breaking point. On the 11th day, Mardonius decided he was finished waiting. He ordered his cavalry to bypass the Greek front line and hit their most vulnerable asset, the Gargaphia Spring. This wasn't battle, it was vandalism. Persian horses trampled the spring, churning clear water into thick, undrinkable slurry of mud and silt. In hours, the only water source for an army of 100,000 men was destroyed. Picture the situation. It's nightfall. You haven't eaten a full meal in days. Your lips are cracked from thirst. The spring is ruined. Enemy cavalry controls the roads. You're trapped. Panic rippled through the coalition. Captains from various Greek city-states started arguing. Athenians wanted to attack. Corinthians wanted to retreat. Spartans were stonewalling. Pausanias, the man holding this fragile alliance together, realized he had no choice. If they stayed one more day, the army would dissolve from thirst or mutiny. He made a decision historically considered one of warfare's most dangerous maneuvers, a tactical night retreat facing the enemy. The plan was complex but logical. At the second watch, the entire army would pack up and pull back to the island, closer to the mountain and fresh water. It required absolute silence. It required perfect coordination. It required every contingent to move simultaneously without alerting Persians just hundreds of yards away. It was solid on paper, but plans are reality's first casualty. As the sun set and the moon rose, Greeks prepared to move. They didn't know they were about to step into a comedy of errors that would nearly cost them Western civilization. To understand why Plataea was such a mess, you must examine what happened that night. The plan was simple: withdraw to high ground, regroup, and drink water. But as soon as the signal was given, the coalition fell apart. The Greek line center didn't just withdraw, they panicked. They grabbed their shields and practically sprinted away from the front. They didn't stop at the agreed position. They kept going all the way back to Plataea town itself, huddling around the Temple of Hera, effectively removing themselves from the fight. In darkness, the Greek army had just lost 50% of its manpower due to fear. But on the right wing, where Spartans were stationed, the problem wasn't fear. It was pride. This brings us to one of history's most stubborn men, Captain Amompharetus. He commanded the Lokos of Patanas, a prestigious Spartan unit. When the retreat order came from Pausanias, Amompharetus refused. He stood there and told Sparta's regent that he would not bring shame upon his country by running from the strangers, his derogatory term for Persians. Imagine the scene. It's 2 a.m. It's pitch black. The rest of the army is trying to sneak away in silence. And here's Pausanias having a screaming match with one of his own captains. Pausanias begged him. He explained it wasn't retreat, it was tactical repositioning. Amompharetus didn't care about semantics. To a Spartan bred on Thermopylae's legend, walking backward was heresy. The argument got physical. Amompharetus picked up a massive rock with both hands, a heavy stone from the riverbed. He slammed it down at Pausanias' feet with a thud that probably echoed through the valley. He pointed at the rock and shouted, "With this pebble, I cast my vote not to flee from the strangers." In Spartan democracy, they voted with pebbles. Amompharetus was mockingly using a boulder to vote for death. While this ridiculous drama unfolded, the Athenians on the left wing sat confused. They sent a runner to investigate. The messenger found Spartan commanders screaming at each other while the army stood motionless. The messenger asked, "Are we leaving or what?" Pausanias, exhausted and furious, finally made a call. He decided to leave Amompharetus behind. He ordered the rest of the Spartan army to begin retreating, hoping that once Amompharetus saw his comrades leaving, he would swallow his pride and follow. It was a game of chicken played with thousands of lives. When Amompharetus realized he was truly being abandoned, he finally cracked. He ordered his men to jog to catch up, but it was too late. The sky was turning gray. Birds were singing. The sun was cresting over the mountains. From the Persian camp, sentries rubbed their eyes. The center was gone, and there, isolated and exposed, were the Spartans strung out in a long, disorganized line. General Mardonius stepped out and saw the gift the gods had given him. He didn't see tactical retreat. He saw a rout. He saw a broken army fleeing in terror. He mocked the Spartans' reputation. Are these the men who never run? Look at them. He didn't wait for infantry to form up. He simply pointed and yelled, "Get them." The dam broke. Persian cavalry surged forward, crossing the river in a thundering wave. Behind them, elite immortals began running, screaming war cries. Pausanias heard the sound first, a low rumble, then a roar. He turned and saw the horizon fill with dust. He looked at his disorganized column. The Athenians were far away, unable to help. His allies were hiding in Plataea. He was alone. Mardonius didn't send infantry for a fair fight. He ordered his archers, tens of thousands of them, to plant their wicker shields and simply darken the sky. This is where Plataea transforms into psychological horror. The Spartans and Tegeans, totaling 53,000 men, were stranded on open slopes. They were not in formation. The natural instinct would be to charge or run. Pausanias did neither. He ordered the army to halt and drop to one knee. Then, amidst the screaming, he turned his back on the enemy. He called for a priest. He needed to perform a sacrifice. In the ancient Greek world, you did not fight until the gods gave the green light. A goat was dragged forward. Pausanias slit its throat and inspected the liver. The signs were unpropitious. The gods said no, so Pausanias waited. Imagine being a soldier in that line. You're crouching behind your shield. Thud, thud, thud of arrows hitting. You hear screams as arrows find gaps, and your general is staring at a goat's entrails. Now look at the man crouching behind the Spartan. This is a helot. He doesn't have a bronze shield. He has wicker or animal skins. The arrows don't discriminate. Helots were dying in droves. One tragic casualty was Lycidas. Herodotus tells us he was the most beautiful man in the Greek army. Before battle officially started, an arrow plunged into his side. He was carried to the rear, dying slowly. His last words, "I do not mind dying for Greece. What I mind is that I die without having struck a blow." This went on for an eternity. Another goat was brought, throat slit, liver inspected. Bad omens. Wait. The Persian infantry moved closer, pouring fire into the motionless ranks. The Tegeans couldn't take it anymore. They started to shift, ready to charge without orders. Pausanias glared at them. He looked up to the temple of Hera on the distant hill, tears streaming, a rare display for a Spartan. He screamed a prayer, begging her not to let them die in shame. It was the ultimate test of Greek tactics. The phalanx's weakness is rigidity. But here, that brainwashed adherence to orders was keeping them from routing. Finally, just as Tegeans were about to disobey, a third goat was sacrificed. Pausanias looked down. The liver was good. The omens had shifted. Pausanias stood up. He didn't need a speech. He didn't need a trumpet. He simply raised his spear. The iron discipline that had kept 10,000 men frozen suddenly released. The statues came to life. The Spartans didn't just walk, they exploded forward. The pent-up rage of an hour of passive dying was about to be unleashed. The waiting was over. The butchery was about to begin. The collision was not the clang of sword on sword. It was the sickening crunch of wood shattering under bronze weight. When Pausanias lowered his spear, Spartans surged like a dam bursting. They crashed in with such force that front ranks were physically lifted and trampled. The wicker wall disintegrated. Now the battle entered the Othismos, the shoving match. This is where the technological gap between East and West became fatal. The Persians were brave. Herodotus describes them grabbing Spartan spears with bare hands, snapping shafts, using daggers. They fought with lion's ferocity. But courage cannot defeat physics. Persians wore linen or scale armor for arrows, not thrusts. Spartans were encased in bronze. When a Persian struck, his blade glanced off. When a Spartan struck, he went through bone. Once spears shattered, Spartans drew their xiphos, the short leaf-shaped sword designed for butchery. This is where Spartan revenge truly began. They moved with robotic efficiency. Stab to the face, bash with shield rim, step forward over corpse. Repeat. It was a meat grinder. The helots, previously dying passively, now swarmed into gaps. Armed with slings, javelins, and knives, they finished off wounded Persians. The dust rose so thick that men fought by silhouette and sound. The screaming was constant, a mix of Persian commands and guttural roars. In the center was Mardonius. Unlike Xerxes, who watched from a throne, Mardonius was in the thick of it, on a white charger, surrounded by his elite bodyguard. He was fighting brilliantly, cutting down Spartans. His presence was the glue holding the Persian army together. As long as they could see that white horse, Persians fought on. The Spartans saw him too. They realized this was a headhunting mission. The phalanx shifted its weight. Like a predator smelling blood, the line began grinding toward the man on the white horse. They ignored piles of gold and silver jewelry worn by fallen immortals. They ignored expensive fabrics. They wanted the head of the man who burned Athens. The distance began to shrink. Persians threw everything they had into the gap. Bodies, horses, furniture from camp. But the bronze wall kept coming. The circle around Mardonius was shrinking. The 1,000 elite Persians guarding him were dying one by one, their bodies forming a ramp that Spartans climbed to get closer. This wasn't battle anymore. It was assassination by army. History records the name Arimnestos, a Spartan whose name means the one who is remembered. And on this day, he earned it. Arimnestos spotted Mardonius rising above the melee. The Persian general was fighting bravely, but bravery is no substitute for an ash spear driven by a man trained for war since age 7. Arimnestos lunged. The blow was catastrophic. The general of the Persian Empire, cousin of Xerxes, burner of Athens, was knocked from his horse and slammed into Boeotia's dirt. He didn't get up. The moment Mardonius hit the ground, the battle's sound changed. The Persian army's roar faltered. Ancient armies were like snakes. Cut off the head and the body dies. The immortals, seeing their leader fallen, finally broke. These men who'd never taken a backward step, who had terrified the known world, threw down their shields and ran. But the most telling moment came from Artabazus, the second in command with a reserve force of 40,000 men, enough to potentially flank and win. But Artabazus was a survivor. He watched Mardonius fall. He saw the Spartan machine grinding forward. He did the math. Instead of charging to save the day, he turned his horse and marched out of Greece. He abandoned the army to its fate. It was a cold, calculated betrayal that sealed the doom of everyone left behind. The remaining Persian forces, leaderless, terrified, and abandoned, panicked. They didn't retreat in an organized fashion. They routed. A chaotic river flowed backward toward the great wooden stockade. They scrambled inside, barred the gates, and climbed the towers, hoping the fortifications would save them. They were wrong. They had just trapped themselves in a cage with a tiger. The Spartans arrived shortly after. But here's a surprising fact. Spartans were terrible at siege warfare. They were trained for open fields, not walls. For a moment, Persians held them off. raining arrows down on Spartans pacing below like frustrated wolves. It looked like a stalemate. But then the Athenians arrived. They'd been busy fighting pro-Persian Greeks, but hearing of the victory, they sprinted to join the Spartans. And unlike Spartans, Athenians were engineers. The Athenians breached the stockade. They tore down a section of the wooden rampart, creating a breach. And through that breach poured the full, unadulterated fury of the Lacedaemonians. What followed inside that fort was not a battle. It was slaughter. This is the part history books gloss over because it's uncomfortable. The Greeks didn't take prisoners. They didn't accept surrenders. They moved through the crowded camp where tens of thousands of Persians were trapped and killed everything that moved. It was methodical extermination. The frustration of Thermopylae, the anger over Athens burning, the misery of thirsty nights. It was all taken out on the trapped Persians. The ground inside the fort became a sludge of mud and blood so deep it reached the ankles. Of nearly 260,000 Persians who stayed with Mardonius, excluding Artabazus's deserters, sources claim only 3,000 survived. An entire generation of Persian manpower wiped off the earth. When the screaming finally stopped, a strange silence fell. The dust settled on the greatest graveyard the Greek world had ever seen. But as Spartans and Athenians wiped blood from their eyes, they began to realize something else. They were standing on a fortune. The Persian camp wasn't just a military base. It was a mobile palace. Mardonius had inherited Xerxes' personal tent and lived in imperial splendor. Gold mixing bowls, silver tables, tapestries with purple dye worth more than a soldier's life, chests overflowing with derricks. For Greeks, especially Spartans whose currency was iron bars, this was a fever dream. There's a famous story that captures this moment. General Pausanias, still covered in battle grime, walked into Mardonius's pavilion. He looked at the silk hangings and gold furniture. He saw Persian chefs terrified and cowering. Instead of killing them, Pausanias gave a bizarre order. Prepare a meal exactly as for Mardonius. The chefs went to work. They roasted exotic meats, baked soft breads, opened amphorae of wine, and laid out a feast fit for a god. The tent filled with the smell of saffron. Then Pausanias turned to his own Spartan cooks and gave a second order. Prepare a standard Spartan mess. The Spartan cooks threw lentils, pork blood, and vinegar into a pot and boiled the infamous black broth. A meal so unappetizing, a visitor joked, "Now I understand why Spartans are not afraid to die." Pausanias placed the two meals side by side. On the left, the culinary height of the greatest empire. On the right, a bowl of brown sludge. He called his commanders in. He pointed to the Persian feast, then to the Spartan slop, and started laughing. He said, "Men of Greece, I brought you here to show the folly of the leader of the Medes. Look at how he lived. He had all this luxury, yet came to rob us, who have so little." It was profound irony. Persians had everything to lose and nothing to gain. Greeks had nothing to lose but their freedom. That contrast became the propaganda image defining Western identity for centuries. But looking back, it was also a warning. Pausanias stood there, mocking the gold, acting incorruptible. But as he stared at that gold, something inside him broke. The man who mocked the feast would soon become addicted to it. While blood dried at Plataea, something almost supernatural happened across the Aegean. Legend tells us that on the exact same afternoon, the Greek fleet launched an amphibious assault on Persian remnants at Mycale. They burned Persian ships, slaughtered their garrison. They effectively ended the Persian Wars in a synchronized double tap. Xerxes had no army left in Europe and no navy to bring them there. The West was saved. Athens, fueled by confidence, returned not as refugees, but as conquerors. They rebuilt walls, constructed a massive fleet, and formed the Delian League, an empire in all but name. But the darkest shadow fell upon Pausanias himself. The man who had commanded iron discipline returned home, but his soul stayed in Mardonius's tent. He stopped wearing the red cloak. He was seen wearing purple robes of a satrap. He stopped eating black broth and began dining on elaborate banquets. He hired a bodyguard of Egyptians and Persians, refusing to let fellow Greeks approach. The savior was cosplaying as the enemy. Rumors swirled he was secretly writing to Xerxes, offering to deliver all of Greece in exchange for the king's daughter's hand. The savior of Western civilization had become a traitor. The Spartans recalled him and put him on trial, but he was acquitted due to lack of evidence. But Pausanias didn't stop. He continued his intrigues. He allegedly stirred up the helots, the very slaves he commanded at Plataea, promising them freedom if they helped him overthrow the Spartan government. That was the final straw. The ephors needed proof. They set a trap. They had a servant hide while Pausanias discussed his plans. The evidence was secured. Pausanias, the man who broke the Persian Empire, ran for his life through Sparta's streets. Not from an enemy army, from his own people. He sprinted into the temple of Athena, claiming sanctuary. The ephors arrived and stopped. They were trapped by their own laws. They couldn't drag him out and couldn't go in with swords. So they came up with a solution that was uniquely, terrifyingly Spartan. If they couldn't touch him, they would simply make sure he never left. They ordered the doors bricked up. And here's the detail that hurts most. Legend tells us an old woman walked through the crowd. It was Pausanias' own mother. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply picked up a heavy stone, walked to the temple door, and placed it on the threshold in silence. Then she walked away. It was the ultimate rejection. By placing that first stone, she voted for his death. For days, the hero of Plataea sat in the temple's darkness. No food, no water, just the sound of his own breathing and the smell of incense he could no longer offer. As he lay dying, the ephors waited. Just moments before his heart stopped, they dragged his emaciated body out into sunlight so he wouldn't die inside and pollute the holy ground. He died essentially a prisoner, a traitor, and a disgrace. This is why we don't make movies about Plataea. It's messy, it's complicated. The hero becomes a villain. The good guys commit war crimes. The victory leads to greed and imperialism. Compare that to Thermopylae. Thermopylae is clean. The 300 die. They are beautiful, noble, and morally pure because they didn't live long enough to be corrupted. We prefer the beautiful defeat to the ugly victory. We prefer the martyr Lycidas to the conqueror Pausanias. But we must not forget the truth. Thermopylae was a symbol, but Plataea was the salvation. It was at Plataea, on those dusty, blood-soaked plains, that 10,000 Spartans and their allies did the impossible. They looked the apocalypse in the eye and didn't blink. They proved that a free people fighting for their homes and their laws could break the back of a global superpower. It was brutal, it was savage, and it was necessary. Plataea wasn't just about military tactics or superior armor. It was about the terrifying power of men who have nothing left to lose. It was about the moment when victimhood transforms into vengeance. The Greeks paid for their victory in ways history rarely emphasizes. They paid with thousands who died in that arrow storm, crouching behind shields, waiting for the gods. They paid with the corruption of their greatest hero, a man who saved civilization only to betray it. They paid with the fracturing of their alliance, which would eventually lead to the Peloponnesian War, Greeks killing Greeks for decades. But they also gained something precious. They proved that the future wasn't predetermined. They showed that a coalition of free cities, arguing and bickering, nearly falling apart at every step, could still defeat the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. Plataea is the story of how Western civilization was saved not by perfect heroes, but by flawed, complicated, sometimes monstrous men who happened to be fighting for something worth saving. It's the story of how discipline can triumph over desperation, how coordination can defeat superior numbers, and how sometimes the most dangerous weapon is the willingness to suffer. It's also a warning. Victory doesn't purify men, it often corrupts them. The gold Pausanias mocked became his obsession. The freedom won became the foundation of empire. So the next time you hear about the 300 Spartans, remember the 10,000 who came after them. Remember the vengeance, remember the victory, and remember the price. Remember Amompharetus voting with a boulder. Remember Lycidas dying without striking a blow. Remember the helots who had no choice but to stand and die for masters who enslaved them. Remember Arimnestos striking down the Persian general. Remember the Athenians who broke the walls. Remember Pausanias, who saved Greece and then betrayed it. Remember that history is never as clean as we want it to be. The heroes are flawed. The victories are costly. The endings are ambiguous. But remember also that on a hot August day in 479 BC, on the plains of Plataea, a group of Greeks stood their ground against impossible odds. They absorbed punishment that would break most armies. They waited for the gods while arrows blocked out the sun. And when the moment came, they unleashed a fury that changed human history. They proved that free men fighting for their homes are the most dangerous warriors on earth. They proved that discipline, even when it seems insane, can be the difference between extinction and survival. They proved that sometimes you have to become a monster to defeat a monster. Plataea wasn't just the climax of the Persian Wars. It was the moment when the West defined itself in opposition to the East. It created the narrative that would shape Western identity for millennia. It was the moment when Athens began its transformation from victim to victor, from burned city to imperial power. It was the moment when Sparta's reputation reached its zenith, only for its greatest hero to fall into disgrace. And it was the moment when 10,000 warriors, backed by 35,000 slaves, proved that sometimes the only answer to overwhelming force is overwhelming violence. The 300 at Thermopylae gave us the beautiful myth of noble sacrifice. The 10,000 at Plataea gave us the ugly reality of survival. Both are part of the truth. Both deserve to be remembered. So here's to the butchers of Plataea. Here's to the men who stood in the arrow storm. Here's to the slaves who fought for masters who oppressed them. Here's to the general who mocked the gold and then drowned in it. Here's to the ugly, complicated, blood-soaked victory that saved Western civilization. Here's to the Battle of Plataea, the greatest battle you've never heard enough about. If you made it this far, you're a true history enthusiast. Please verify your subscription. Check out this next video about the rise of the Athenian Empire, where we explore what happened to the gold Pausanias laughed at. I'll see you there.